I know. I'll make an announcement. Good afternoon. If I can ask everyone to be seated, we will start the meeting in approximately 2 minutes. All right, good afternoon. Being that it is 1:30, we will call this meeting to order. My name is Lucinda DeNovo, Vice Chair of the Tourism Commission, and I would like to welcome you all to the April 3rd Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us here today in Portland, ahead of Oregon's Governor's Conference on Tourism, and to those joining throughout the Travel Oregon Industry YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon Industry website if you would like to follow along. Commissioners, I would like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. Now, I'd like to ask the commissioners and Todd to introduce themselves. Greg?
My name is Greg Willits. I'm from a lovely part of the state, Sisters, Oregon, and I own and manage Five Pine Lodge with my family. Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everybody. Anna Maria Ponzi with newly formed AM Ponzi and Company, formerly of Ponzi Vineyards. Great to be here in Portland. Nice to see everybody.
Hello, my name is David Pendleton, owner of America's Hub World Tours, and I would just like to take a moment first and just say, unfortunately, we don't have Chris Chester nor John Erickson with us here due to their passing, but I just want everyone to know that they meant a lot to our industry, and we continue to move forward. In addition to that, I want to say something that really just thrilled my heart, just knowing that we had the Women in Tourism Conference today. And a lot of people don't realize that our industry here in the U.S. is made up close to 55–60% of women who have been here and doing so much work over the years. And throughout the world, that's probably about the highest percent of women in any country. But with that said, there are some areas that we need to continue to improve on, and that's creating a career path that for the highest percent of people who support and drive our industry, we need to recognize and do more when it comes to career planning. In addition, I would like to take a moment and say thank you to the Oregon Convention Center for allowing us to be here as well. I know Steve has done a great job as the GM here and has an incredible staff. My good friend, I see Jeff Miller sitting there in the audience with Travel Portland and with the work that they do in this city as well. And last, I just want to take a moment and just, most of you guys probably don't know Shane, who's the general manager of the Hyatt Convention Center next door. He has been promoted and is leaving. But the one thing he did, and did really well, was to ensure that the community was engaged in everything that the Hyatt was doing as it relates to their mission and vision within their organization. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Scott?
Good morning, or I guess afternoon. Scott Youngblood with Pyramid Global Hospitality, the Benchmark Luxury and Lifestyle Division, managing 4 beautiful little hotels here in downtown Portland. Please forgive my informal attire. I just completed the Portland Green Loop mobile learning lab that many of us had an opportunity to participate in this morning. It was absolutely marvelous, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Todd?
Hi, everybody. Todd Davidson, the CEO of Travel Oregon. Jeff, it is great to be back in Portland.
Thank you, Commissioners. We wish Chair Boyles and Commissioners Gremmels, Shepherds, and Stevenson well, as their schedules require them to be other places today. We can also confirm that they received today's materials ahead of time and will receive any additional materials provided today. Commissioners, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge how wonderful it is to be back in the City of Roses for this year's conference. There has been so much good news recently reported from our partner at Travel Portland. I would like to take this moment to congratulate them on securing the National Education Association Conference in 2025. It will be the largest convention held to date in Portland, with over 12,000 visitors and an estimated $18 million in economic impact. And in 2030, Portland will be hosting the NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Final Four. Congratulations to Travel Portland. As a native of Portland, I would also like to take this moment to acknowledge the passing of iconic Darcel 15. Walter Cole was a trailblazer and a champion of gay rights, and his establishment has been an institution in this community for over 50 years. Our hearts go out to his family and the entire Portland community. Darcel's legacy will live on through the countless lives she touched. Over the course of the next 3 days, we will see firsthand how Travel Oregon, stakeholders, the 9 federally recognized tribes, and industry partners are bringing the 10-year strategic vision to life, applying the 3 lenses of racial equity, regenerative tourism, and economic prosperity. Bold and rewarding work, to say the least. On behalf of the Commission, we would like to thank the entire Travel Oregon team for their tireless efforts in bringing this conference together. We look forward to gathering, collaborating, celebrating the work that has been done and will continue to be done. And let us always be reminded that though the work we are here to do today is ours, the work itself must be for all of the people. With that said, we have a full agenda today. Commissioners, unless you have anything else to add for the good of the order, we will get started.
Could I?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think am I on? I want to also take recognition of folks we've lost. In particular, a true pioneer of our wine industry was passed earlier this week, Dick Erath, who founded Erath Winery in the late 60s and was a true leader for our wine industry. So I want to take note and recognize him as well as a true leader and incredible cheerleader for our state of Oregon.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Commissioners, in holding a public meeting throughout the state, one important opportunity we have is to hear from our local partners, welcoming us into their communities. It is my pleasure to invite Jeff Miller, CEO and President of Travel Portland, along with Lisa Edel and Matthew Finn from Travel Oregon, to join us for a local welcome and preview of what we can expect over the next couple of days during the Governor's Conference on Tourism.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I can't tell you how excited we are to have you here in Portland, Oregon's biggest city. But one of the things I always say about Portland is we are only as good as what we are surrounded by. And if you look at the riches of the state, we are a very lucky big city to have all of this. And I look at that picture and see the mountain, and I'm proud every day. I hope you got your gift bags. We want to make sure that you've got a little bit of Portland, some diversity, some sustainability, something to remember your trip here by. I also want to just talk about the struggles that Portland has had. The pandemic was not kind to us, the reputational damage. was deep. We are coming out of that, and I'm very excited about where we are going. We have a ways to go. One of the things that I would ask of the commission, and I have asked this of the governor personally at the MLK breakfast, is to, anytime you see the governor, make sure that she is watching Multnomah County and the city of Portland and ensuring that they work together. They meet every other Tuesday from what I understand, but we need that collaboration, and I would say the biggest hurdle that we have right now is making sure that elected officials actually do work together. And so as a commission, you have a voice, and please use that with other elected officials. We need that help and that collaboration. Last year, we reached $5.2 billion in spending in the region, and that was it's just slightly less than the $5.6 billion, so we are coming back strongly. The thing I would say is the city of Portland downtown is not coming back as quickly. We are running about 20% occupancy less than our competitive set of cities. The average daily rate is back where it was, but the occupancy in the city has really been hurt, and Scott can attest to this from his experience. The upside to that is we have this year the best convention calendar we've ever had. It's back to back to back all year long, and those conventions were booked before the pandemic with the opening of the Hyatt, which we are so excited to still have, and it continues to be a draw for us. So when you see those big numbers, I'm happy that our partners outside of the core are doing well. We just need some attention in the core. We've also done some consumer sentiment survey work, and we know that if you have visited Portland, you are more positive about the city than those that haven't. It's easy to be outside of the city and read the news and think that it's still on fire. It's not, and you're here looking at it and seeing it. So the more people we can get into the core of the city, the better off we will be. I will also say that you've mentioned the two big conventions. We're really proud of that, and our partnership with Sport Oregon. Jim Etzel's behind me. Couldn't do it without them. And that's another example of collaboration that happens within the city, but also with the RCTP program and Travel Oregon staff and the work that they are doing. We are all better together, and I appreciate those partnerships. I can skip all of those wonderful things you said for me. Thank you. Sorry. No, I'm glad you did. Occupancy is holding steady, and we are going up. The PR team has done an amazing job. We've had articles in Cosmopolitan Magazine, Sunset Magazine, Forbes, which was a big get that we've worked on for years. And we knew coming out of the pandemic that we had to storm the beaches with positive PR written by people that are respected, like Condé Nast Traveler, like Hemispheres Magazine. And that was the first staff that we brought back fully to make sure that we had those professionals telling the stories of Portland in diverse ways. This summer, the Ritz-Carlton will open, which we are incredibly proud to have the only one in the Pacific Northwest. They will have a food hall. You'll recall there were a lot of food carts there, but they will have a really spectacular food hall. So that's a great addition to the neighborhood, Scott, your neighborhood. So we're happy about that. We were opening a visitor center, again, finally, in the west end of Portland. The sort of core of Portland has shifted a bit, and we're about a block and a half from Powell's. We hope to be open by Rose Festival with a fully functioning visitor center later in the year, and I'm really excited about that. We just hired the manager a week ago, so being back on the street talking to those visitors is going to be really important, and making sure they get to all the great attractions. I will end by saying thank you again for being here. It's important for Portlanders to see our statewide partners, and for you to go back to your communities and tell the story of what you saw, because there is misconception out there about what the downtown city center looks like here by the convention center. So please go tell those stories, shine a light on us, and we will do the same for you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for your remarks, Jeff. Lisa, will you be giving us an update?
Good afternoon, commissioners, and welcome to the Oregon Governor's Conference on Tourism. It's really great to see all of you here. We have so many special things happening at this conference, and I'm just delighted that I have a few minutes to walk you through some of those things that are happening. And some of my favorite things are that we have almost 550 industry folks registered for this year's conference. This takes us back to registration numbers that we were hitting in 2019. So I'm excited to see us back at this level, but you know that that's not the end for us. I see high expectations, hopefully into the 600 plus for next year. So also, we awarded 50 conference scholarships to small businesses, events, volunteers, and other partners around the state. Them attending this conference wouldn't have been possible without those scholarships. So we're really excited about that. Travel Oregon staff Gabi Duarte and Alexa are going to be holding a first-timers event for those scholarship recipients at 4:30 this afternoon. So if anybody in this room is interested in welcoming our scholarship recipients, please let me know. Or Gabi, I think you're in the room. Raise your hand. You can see Gabi after the commission meeting. I think, but most importantly, and it has been said already this morning, is that really having the opportunity to bring the industry together for the first time at the Oregon Convention Center. And allowing time for our participants to really explore the city of Portland and just remind our industry why the city is so special. And I just wanted to give a special thanks to Jeff Miller and his team. They have been a dream to work with to bring this conference to Portland. So thank you, Jeff, for everything that you do. This conference, we cannot be happier to have the Hyatt Regency as our host hotel. So hopefully you guys are all checked in into your rooms. Our room block is sold out, it's completely sold out, and has exceeded our expectations over the 4 days that we're here at the Oregon Convention Center. We are also able to host a few pre-conference meetings at the Hyatt as well, so it's nice to diversify our meeting space. And David, I wanted to thank you so much for calling out the Women in Tourism event. That is one of the pre-conference meetings that we've held at the Hyatt. I was over there this morning. We had 90 plus industry folks in that room. There was a lot of passion, excitement for the future. And what I'm really excited to say is that we had about a stack of 50 or more of those folks that are really interested in continuing that conversation. So this won't be the last time that we bring this group together. We have people that are interested into being mentors and coaches, and we will be regrouping with them sometime in June. So stay tuned for more information and an upcoming spur or communication through Todd or Sarah. We always like to provide some surprises and delight moments throughout the conference, and we know how important networking is to everyone. And so to accomplish that goal, Tuesday, we are inviting everyone to join us for a taste of Portland and their legendary food cart scene. A collection of carts will be located outside in a tented area, because we do know that it's still April, across on MLK Boulevard. This conference would not be possible without our sponsors and exhibitors, and I invite actually each one of you as commissioners to stop by during our exhibitor breaks this week, introduce yourself, and please thank them for coming. The team at the Port of Portland are our longtime friends, colleagues, and supporters of this conference, and this year they just went above and beyond. As part of their sponsorship, they invited their friends from Delta Airlines and British Airways to join the fun, and they will both be giving away 2 round-trip tickets to Amsterdam and London throughout the conference. So what I'm going to say is that it might be worth getting up early for those early general sessions and to be getting your ticket potentially on your way to London or Amsterdam. And we really could not do this tourism thing without our nonstop air service. So just a huge thank you to the Port of Portland and everything that they do for our team at Travel Oregon and our industry. We have a total of 18 sponsors at this year's conference. All of our sponsorships are sold out. Many of those sponsors have really stepped up with creativity and passion for our industry to ensure this conference is a complete success. We have 24 exhibitors. That space is also sold out. We could have sold an additional 10 spaces if we would have had the space up here in the Portland Ballroom. So just exciting to see the passion and the interest for the opportunities to connect. And I just really wanted to thank everyone who's made this conference possible. It's already been said today, but it really takes a village, or I guess I should rather say a tourism industry, to make this happen. And it's so important that we continue to gather and really celebrate the value of tourism. So I just wanted to thank you for your support of this conference and just open it up to any questions you might have.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Greg?
What time for the food trucks?
So we'll have like a 2-hour break for lunch. So that will be at 12:15 on Tuesday. And then we'll regroup for our afternoon general session at 2:15.
Any other comments, commissioners? David?
Not a question. I just want to say thank you, because I know both yourself and Matt and many others have put so much work into making this possible for us. So thank you for all that you do.
No, I appreciate that, David. And I thank you for calling out Matt. He is running around taking care of an elevator issue. So I just wanted to appreciate that you called him out. He does work really hard. And like you said, it takes a village.
I couldn't agree more. Lisa and Matt, you make this look easy, and I know it's not easy as someone who has been organizing events for the last 25 years. So I thank you for always bringing your passion and your commitment to these conferences. I don't know how you're going to beat last year, but I'm going to spend the next 3 days figuring that out, and I'm sure I'm going to be dazzled. So thank you, Lisa, for all of your efforts. And I was at that session this morning, and it was inspiring. It was inspiring to see 90 women together and just having a really great conversation and being fearless and being vulnerable and just willing to do the work to continue to develop future women leaders in this organization. So thank you. Any other comments, commissioners?
Just a shout out again for the women in tourism this morning. It was a way to wake up this morning, and as Vice Chair has mentioned, it's just always rejuvenating to get a bunch of gals together and see how bold and how vulnerable we can be and how we can get things done together. So I'm really happy to see becoming a part of the tourism industry. So thank you I know you were working hard on that in addition to the conference. So thanks again, Lisa. I appreciate it. And thanks to Michelle for leading us through the workshop.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you over the next couple days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On Friday, March 17th, the commission meeting notice was posted to the commission meeting website. Notice was sent through our industry communications, and today's meeting agenda and link to the live stream were posted. This opportunity to hear from our stakeholders and partners really is an invitation for our partners to provide us with information, updates, and constructive thoughts regarding Oregon's travel and tourism industry. I'd also like to remind everyone that a comment form lives continually on our industry meeting page should you like the opportunity to provide us with your thoughts and insights. No comments were submitted ahead of the meeting, and I don't think we have any public comments today. So we're already ahead of schedule, so we will move on to the next item. Commissioners, I'd like to confirm that everyone has received and had a chance to review the commission packet, including the financials, which were posted on the meeting page.
Yes.
Okay, great. With that said, I would like to thank Commissioner Willits for reviewing the financials with me, Todd, and Kathleen prior to the meeting. Greg, this is your first run up. Would you like to provide the commission with the financials update?
Yes, and thank you, Vice Chair DeNovo. We met and reviewed financials. The financials for fiscal year to date were included in our commission materials and have been posted to the industry site. Looking at current fiscal year to date, through the end of quarter 3, we have received $33.1 million in TLT, or 87% of our current budget of $38 million, amended in December of 22. Normally we would be at about a 80% level of budget at this time, so we're on pace with the amended budget. If we continue at this pace, we will end the fiscal year at $40.5 million, which Tourism Economics predicted in February of 23. And year-over-year increase in TLT is up 16% compared to the same time frame of fiscal year 22, compared to fiscal year 19, which is a bellwether for us. TLT is up 22% after adjusting for the change in the tax rate.
Thank you, Commissioner Willits. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions about the financials? No? Okay. We will move on then to approval of minutes. Commissioners, has everyone had the opportunity to review the February 22nd minutes? And are there any questions or comments in regards to them? No?
My only comment is I want to say thanks to Danielle and Angie for the information they shared at the last commission meeting with the creation of the outdoor recreation and the support of the tribes and their stories, where I think was a critical piece, very informative in many ways. And she touched, both of them touched on something that's very dear to me and ensuring that tourism is accessible for everyone. I thought that was very good. And then the collaboration with the Support Oregon as well, with the work that's being done there as well. So I think they did overall a really good job of sharing a lot of information with us as well.
Thank you for those comments, David. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for mentioning that. If there are no other comments, I will entertain a motion for approval of the February minutes. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The February 22nd Commission meeting minutes are approved and will be posted to the Commission section of the Travel Oregon Industry website. Commissioners, a nominating committee is appointed annually to deliberate and propose a slate of officers to serve as the next chair and vice chair. Given that Chair Boyle's term on the commission will be ending, he has appointed himself and immediate past chair, Scott Youngblood, to serve as the nominating committee to propose the slate for the coming year's leadership team. Chair Boyles and Commissioner Youngblood will engage with current members to understand their interest in serving now or in the future, and will provide us with a report in June at the commission meeting. Are there any questions or comments about that? No? Okay, thank you in advance, Scott, for willing to participate on that committee again. Well, being that there are no questions, I would now...
I'm so sorry.
You have a question? Okay.
I just have an inquiry. There are also, I believe, 3 commissioners that are up in June of this year. Is that right?
There are actually 4.
4, okay.
And one is term limited. One is ending her first term but is not seeking reappointment.
Okay.
And then we have 2 that are eligible for reappointment.
Okay, so there'll be 2 openings as of June.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Since there are no other questions, Todd, I'd like to have turn this meeting over to you so you can walk us through the fiscal 23-25 strategic plan and budget development.
It wouldn't be a governor's conference if we didn't sit and talk about the future a little bit, right? So that's what we want to do, and it's already been cited a couple of times that so much of the work that we do now is directly tethered to the 10-year strategic vision that the Commission adopted back in June of 2022. So I have complete control of the clicker, and it looks like I'm able to navigate pretty well here. So what I want to make sure I cover with you today in the time that we've allocated is, first of all, what the general framework is going to be for the building of the 23-25 strategic plan. We'll move into talking about some of the prioritized strategies that have been derived from the 10-year strategic vision. Then we'll talk about the results of the stakeholder survey and then the economic impact. So in other words, what's the environment within which that we're looking to construct this next biennial strategic plan, both from an economic standpoint as well as what we're hearing from our stakeholders in the industry. So let's jump into the proposed approach that we're taking with our 23-25 strategic plan. Last summer, commissioners, as you know, I reported to you earlier that the executive team met in an offsite in August and had a very robust discussion around the 19 strategies that are contained in the in the 10-year strategic vision. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between 10-year visions and biennial strategic plans. But there are 19 strategies that are contained under the 4 objectives in the 10-year strategic vision. And at that time, we prioritized 5 of the strategies that we considered the do it now strategies, things that we wanted to get moving on at this time. They needed to be sequenced first, either because there was urgency behind it or because we believe they impacted future work. Some of them were maybe small steps on a really big objective and a really big strategy. We also identified strategies that we considered the do it next strategies as well. In the fall, then, we pulled together 5 different cross-functional teams made up of our staff that, from across the organization, to create action plans and milestones to map out a roadmap for each of those 5 strategies. We then brought to you in December a proposed budget modification, which you approved, to help us then move into those strategies. And just to give you a little bit of an update on those resource allocations, the implementation of those actions is going to obviously be continuing into the next biennium as well. We knew that this wasn't approving what are you going to do in the next 6 months, but rather where are we going to start making investments now, knowing that these are going to transition into the next biennium and the 23-25 plan as well. In March, the executive team then held another offsite, and we really looked at covering the results of the stakeholder survey, wanted to make sure that we understood what we were hearing from our partners across the state. We took a look at the do it now and the do it next priorities that we had identified last summer to make sure that those were still the right ones, still the ones that were those top choices. We wanted to be able to take a look at those prioritized strategies on the basis of this 23-25 strategic plan that we're launching into. And you're going to see additional detail on here in just a moment. Each of those prioritized strategies has an executive team sponsor, and the direction that I've given to each of those executive team sponsors at this time is to then provide us with a high-level budget for addressing each of those priorities. So that high-level budget is what will then inform the 23-25 plan and budget that we will bring to you in early May. Over the next couple of months, Travel Oregon is going to be transitioning into a new organizational structure. And we need to ensure, obviously, that the staff and our people managers are clear on their roles and the focus of their departments. We have a lot to focus on with the Do It Now priorities, those 5 originally designated Do It Now priorities in terms of the workload. That we have planned to pull together similar cross-functional teams then of staff to create action plans for those Do It Next priorities as we enter the next biennium. That's going to give us that much clearer picture that we need of what the resources are, that we need, the timing of the work that's going to be underway. So I will be already planning on coming back to you in the fall with an additional updated budget modification based on the results of those action plans. So in essence, the way the sequencing will work is, as you see it there. Don't trust me with the clicker. The activity and the timelines that you see mapped out here are, as I provide you a little additional detail over what I just had afforded you a moment ago. But what I really want to make sure I touch on here is that the key components from this point forward, you see the inputs that have come in February and March. As we move into April, the meeting that we're in now, this is where we're sharing with you the general framework and approach. We'll be finalizing the budget and the contents for the 23-25 strategic plan, providing that to the commission then on May 1st. So you'll have an opportunity for review and feedback. We will then share it with our industry stakeholders, elected officials, and industry trade associations as required in statute. Shortly after that, we will then convene a virtual meeting in the middle of May that will serve as our public hearing on the proposed plan and budget. We will then close that public comment period the end of May, and we'll have the opportunity then the first couple of weeks of June to incorporate any revisions that have come in from recommendations from commissioners, from our industry stakeholders and others, and bring to you a final draft plan when we meet together in June in Lakeview. Now, you may be wondering about the prioritized strategies, and I do want to make sure that I cover those with you briefly. As I mentioned, we have 19 strategies that are in the strategic plan, and there would be a mild revolt within Travel Oregon if we prioritized all 19 of those. And so the exec team sat down together last August, as I mentioned, and prioritized 19 of these strategies that we wanted to move forward with. And of those 5, the kind of criteria that were taken into account by us were things like what's going to have the greatest impact on our vision and our mission and those objectives. You know, that its completion is going to be dependent on other strategies getting started. So some things naturally needed to occur first before other work could actually even commence. We wanted to look for opportunities for cross-functional work within the agencies. We wanted to look at things that may be mandated by the state. As a public agency, there are requirements that we have for providing certain reports and such, and we wanted to make sure the work we were doing is going to be in service to our statutory obligations as well. And we wanted to make sure that the work we did was supporting multiple regions and would align with insights that were provided from the stakeholder survey. So that was important to us in mapping out what the overall criteria were for choosing the strategies. So what I want to show you are all 19 strategies, and the ones that you see in green under the objectives are the ones that have been highlighted. So under the objective of Oregon's tourism economy is flourishing, improving the perception of the value of tourism and increasing advocacy among the industry workforce, our residents, and our policymakers was determined to be the prioritized strategy. Within the objective of Oregon is striving to be a place of equity, there were 2 that were identified. One is that ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion is emphasized and integrated agency-wide, from programming and procurement to employee recruitment and training, and also making sure that we're fostering deep relationships and elevating the voices of historically and currently underserved and under-resourced communities. And then within Oregon delivers remarkable experiences. Again, there are 2. The first, reducing high visitation pressure and increasing community livability by investing in the development of niche tourism products based on growing visitor demand and Oregon's competitive advantages, and providing resources and assistance to tourism-related businesses, organizations, and communities that are experiencing or have experienced crisis. And crisis was obviously very broadly defined because different parts of the state were impacted differently, or sometimes multiple times by different crises, whether it was the pandemic, drought, or wildfires, just to name 3. So what did we hear from our partners? We went out and surveyed our stakeholders. We went out in January. The survey closed in mid-March, and our team, and I don't know if Kate and LaDan are in the room, but these 2 did the heavy lift of encouraging and working with our RDMO partners and others to ensure that we had over 1,000 surveys returned from our partners across the state. And so the overall purpose, of course, of this survey is to make sure that we're getting feedback directly from individuals and organizations that we work with. You know, I often will talk about how at Travel Oregon you can't necessarily buy what we're selling. You know, we're in the inspiration generation business. We're also in that product development, stewardship development, community and business development work as well. And the reality is it's only by coming together and aligning and leveraging our work, our messages, and our budgets that we're able to be impactful in the marketplace. So making sure that we're hearing directly from our folks in the industry, our stakeholders and partners, what their priorities are and what they see as the greatest needs is kind of a way for us to ground truth the priorities that we're setting out. So as we embark on that 10-year strategic vision, the results of the survey actually help inform our strategic direction, which then informs also the guidelines for the RCTP, the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program, as well. So what did we hear? Well, first of all, let's talk about who we heard from. The data collection responses by region, you may be interested in just seeing that we had, of those 1,000 folks that we did hear from, We heard roughly the percentage breakdown between the regions from who we heard from in 2020 when we last did the stakeholder survey and who we heard from this year was roughly the same. We did hear from a little larger percentage on the Oregon coast, a little less of a percentage in the Portland region, but overall the spread was generally pretty consistent in terms of the responses that we were getting from each of the regions. By industry sector, if you were to look at this, the largest group that we heard from were the lodging sector. We heard from a number of private businesses. When you look at that initial list, you see a number of private businesses, but you also see our DMO ecosystem responding very strongly. The local and regional destination management organizations were eager participants both in making sure that that survey was being distributed, but also in filling it out for us as well. We asked them what they thought of our strategies. We shared the 5 prioritized do it now strategies with each of them, and they provided us with their rank order of each of those 5 strategies. And the top strategy that they rated as the highest is to improve the perception of the value of tourism and increase advocacy amongst the industry workforce, residents, and policymakers, followed closely by reducing high visitation pressures and increasing community livability by investing in the development of niche tourism product. Now, we didn't provide all 19 of the strategies for folks to rate. We wanted to get their impression of the first 5 that we had identified and see how those resonated with them. I will tell you candidly, it's not a huge surprise to me that the one that talks about ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion is emphasized and integrated agency-wide. It's very internal, you know, and it's one that we wanted to start with as an agency. I'm not surprised that that didn't necessarily rate as high by our partners in terms of what they need for them. And so that I don't take that as any slight against DEI work, but rather just recognition that that was a very internal strategy that was prioritized by your executive team at Travel Oregon. One of the questions that we asked folks were, you know, about those high pressure areas, high pressure times of the year, how they feel about the number of visitors that are coming to their region in each season. And as you can see here, the summer season actually is the one that had the highest score in terms of 24% of the respondents to the survey believed that there were too many visitors to their region, while 21% thought that there were too few, and 51% felt just about the right number. And there were 4, 5, 6% of the folks all that were consistently didn't feel that they could provide an answer. But you see how those bars shift over time. Well, you as commissioners know that we have talked for...
Todd, forgive me. Can you share that slide with us? Sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Moved it on my screen. It didn't move there. So I'll just pause for a moment so you can see the specific bar that I was referring to. Specifically, though, as commissioners, what you do realize is that there are parts of the state that have experienced some of those pressures more than other parts have. And so we also asked that question by region. And as you can see here, this is only asking about the number of visitors in the summer. 42% of our stakeholders in Central Oregon said too many, 51% said about the right amount, 7% said too few. And you see that Oregon coast also with 36% too many, 54% about right, 8% too few. And it moves down from there, Mount Hood Gorge, Eastern, Portland, et cetera. And these are ranked by how many felt there were too many. And again, commissioners, as you know from our discussions and the work that we've done with much of our, in our destination development work and some of our marketing work, some of those areas that have felt the visitor pressure the most have been in the Columbia River Gorge in Central Oregon and on the North Coast. And so this is not necessarily a surprise, but it's good to get it affirmed and to have a way to be able to put a measure against it and evaluate it as well. We asked them what were the 5 strengths and areas that they felt 5 strengths that we have and then 5 areas that they'd like to see us focused on and to benefit their community. Well, the top strength, resoundingly, 74% of the respondents was outdoor recreation. 40% also acknowledged food and beverage, wineries, breweries, food carts. There's that lunch thing again, Greg. Restaurants, bars, and then agritourism, our diversity of lodging options, and our amenities in terms of attractions and art and cultural experiences. Those were ranked as the top 5 strengths that came from our stakeholders. 5 areas that they felt needed focus. Jill, this is where you and I were talking on the way in the door. The top one noted, public infrastructure. Simply put, bathrooms and parking, where there's a nexus to the travel and tourism industry. Also concerns about workforce availability by 30% of our folks, making sure that we are indeed a welcoming destination for Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+, and others, 21%. Other areas that need focus, lodging was again called out here, and destination marketing and promotion generally. We asked about community challenges and asked them to what extent each of these challenges might be posing a risk to their community. And far and away, the lack of affordable housing, and this was primarily tied to both reputationally for the travel and tourism industry, whether it was seen as the industry was causing that as a result, or if it's a workforce issue, that the employees in the industry couldn't necessarily afford to live in the community. There wasn't either housing that was affordable or housing available at all. So that lack of affordable housing clearly popped as the top challenge that they felt, that our stakeholders felt was posing a risk to their community. Followed then by the economic downturn, houselessness, overburdened public resources, and wildfires. So we asked about long-term planning priorities, given all this. And what's interesting to note here, and I'm only going to talk about the top 3, tourism-related infrastructure, number 1, grant and funding resources and opportunities, number 2, marketing and promotion, number 3. The only reason I'm going to talk about those is because the interesting fact is those were also the top 3 in 2020, but the order was flipped. The order was flipped. And in 2020, marketing and promotion was number 1. It's still obviously, those 3 still clustered together are still very strong. Marketing and promotion is still seen as a long-term planning priority, but tourism-related infrastructure and access to grants and funding resources and those kinds of opportunities are now seen as higher priorities for our stakeholders. So, the economic environment that we are currently navigating within, I'm pleased to be able to share with you a snapshot of where we were when and where we are today. In 2003, when the Oregon Tourism Investment Proposal was passed into law, travel and tourism in Oregon was a $6.5 billion industry and employed about 85,000 Oregonians. In 2019, we had become a $12.8 billion industry. These numbers, by the way, are not on the screen, just so you know. But in 2019, prior to COVID, the bellwether year, as someone referred to it earlier, $12.8 billion industry, employing 118,500 Oregonians with about $3.8 billion in earnings. As you've heard me say before, the impacts of COVID were swift and severe. And the industry in 2020 went from being a $12.8 billion industry to a $6.5 billion industry. In other words, where we were in 2003. Today, in 2022, based on the preliminary research that we've received back from Runyon and Associates, who has been doing this work for us since the late 80s, travel and tourism is now a $13.8 billion industry, employing 117,000 Oregonians, $4.3 billion in earning $643 million in state and local tax revenues. So employment is still down. The other numbers are all stronger than they were in 2019, except, like I said, for the employment number in particular. We know, and Jeff alluded to this, that the growth, the recovery has not been equitable across the state. Different regions have come back more quickly than others, but there's no doubt seeing $13.8 billion in visitor spending that were, some of that driven by demand, some of that driven by inflationary pressures as well. But both of those factors, putting the industry back in a place where it's about $1 billion more in spending last year than it was in 2019. Just to reground us all in the revenue forecast that we are planning against, our current biennial budget that we adopted is $73.8 million for this current biennium, 2021-23 biennium. That's the $38 million, that includes the $38 million budget that we adopted at the December Commission meeting that Greg alluded to during the financial report. The planning budget, the planning revenue forecast that we're using is to increase to $42 million in 23-24. That's about a 4% increase over that $40.5 million estimate that, again, Greg alluded to, that if we are on pace, as we currently are, we're at 87% of budget, where normally we'd be right around 80. And tourism economics had forecasted that we would come in around 40.5 if that pace continued. So this represents a 4% increase in 23-24. That this is the year that the recession, albeit a modest one, still forecasted to be a modest one, even with what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. It's still forecasted to be a modest recession that would occur in Q2 or Q3 of this year. 24-25 would then grow 9% over that fiscal year FY24 to $45.7 million, or a biennial budget that we're currently planning against of $87.7 million. So with that, I will conclude this just to ground you in what we're taking in. What are the data points we're considering as we're building this 23-25 plan? All obviously richly tethered to that 10-year strategic vision, as I alluded to earlier. So I am happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
Hi. I have a question. So based on the stakeholder comments, what I saw there was a lot of information for me to gather all at once, but showed there was a lack of priority for the DEI strategy. And there's more of a concern for infrastructure. If I read that, if I'm gathering all this information. Is that going to change anything in the planning with Travel Oregon?
Yeah, what you saw related to DEI and the prioritization there was specific to us. We asked them to rank the 5 do-it-now strategies that Travel Oregon's executive team is working against. And the DEI strategy, that specific DEI strategy, is we need to start with us before we can roll it out to the industry. So we have work to do, and that's that specific strategy that was contained in the plan. That one ranked lower, and I believe it ranked lower because it was seen as a Travel Oregon internal strategy, whereas the other strategies were much more externally focused, like infrastructure, high-use areas, labor, resources for areas that have been impacted by crisis, et cetera, much more externally focused, outward-looking programs from Travel Oregon.
Right. Yeah, because what I got from that is the stakeholders are looking for infrastructure and workforce help. Is that fair to say? Is that a summary?
I think that's, when you look at the long-term planning that were in the ranking that came up there, then truly number 1 was infrastructure, number 2 was grants, number 3 was marketing and promotions. So the short answer is yes. But the details also in the crosstabs in terms of which regions might have a different interest in something else. I would still say that things like DEI are still very much. I mean, you saw it pop up that one of one of the things that we need to work on is Oregon being a more welcoming destination. That popped up as, when I shared the one slide about what are the 5 strengths and what are the 5 areas we need to focus on. And one of those 5 areas to focus on is we need to be a more welcoming place for BIPOC,
Right.
LGBTQIA plus, et cetera. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I will say this, over the years, it's been very pleasing to see that all the regions have been working on DEI for some time. So collectively, we will continue to move forward. I just want to say, Todd, with the inflation, with the economy, the recession that we're all following and tracking so close, and then as I continue to watch the airlines and seeing what shifts and how they're going to have to adapt over the next 3 to 6 months and a few things. I like what you shared, what we saw in the data, but I think we still need to be cautious.
Are you speaking from a revenue forecast standpoint when you talk about cautious?
Revenue, yeah.
Oh, you and I are so like-minded, David. We're going to do great together. When we adopted this as a planning forecast, we chose the baseline. There was a more aggressive alternative. There was also a less aggressive, which didn't actually feel reasonable, but the baseline felt right for where we were right now. We'll continue to monitor that, and obviously the budget we bring you in June will have February, March, April, May, and June revenue included in it that we didn't have when we revisited the revenue forecast and set this up in February at that commission meeting. So we'll have 4 or 5 more months of data to put against it as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And you said there's a high likelihood of a budget modification coming in October.
What happens is if you didn't hear his question, the likelihood of there being a budget modification in October, we receive a check each month, at the beginning of each month, from the Department of Revenue where the funds are transferred that have come in from the previous month for the most part. But there is always an accrual. There's money in what is referred to as a suspense account, but there's always an accrual. There's an adjustment that comes end of June, early July. And of course, at that point, we've already approved a budget for the biennium. But sometimes it's a modest amount of money, and sometimes it's significant, So it could be anywhere, it could be $100,000 and it could be $1 million something. I mean, just depending on when the lodging taxes are being remitted by lodging operators from around the state. So there's always a final budget modification that we bring to the commission at that fall meeting. And that also affords us the time to do the work, as I mentioned at the very onset of this presentation, with our staff team around the do it now, do it next priority strategies to form those action teams. At the conclusion of the organizational design and structure work that we're in the midst of now, being able to set up those action teams to do that work and bring back a budget modification to the commission when they meet in the fall.
Todd, I just want to thank you and the team for all of the work that you've done in the last few months. In February, you were just beginning a portion of this work, and you and the team have been very busy. I'm really pleased to know that we had 1,000 responses for the survey. It's clear to me that people are vested in this work. I also wanted to just thank you. When we approved the 10-year strategic vision, we asked you as a commission, and I think it was David specifically, who we wanted the commission to have the opportunity to review the plan. And so I'm pleased to know that the commission will see it on May 1st, and then the industry will see it several weeks later. So thank you again for always hearing us. And we also asked you at this meeting to make sure that most of your work was done with the organizational structure, and I am happy to know that that is indeed the case. I know we have, we can't always control when we bring new people into the organization, but I'm really pleased to see where we're at, and thank you to you and the team for all of your efforts. Any other comments, commissioners?
You know, and I think you're right. The May 1st, my first thought was, with everything that's going on, was a little aggressive, but kudos to you and the team for taking ownership to it, and look forward to seeing what you bring us. No question about it.
Thank you, David.
I'm reminded of the conversation when we thought the plan for the 10-year strategic vision, the revision to that plan, was aggressive, and we met that deadline. So I appreciate your comment. It's true. They're doing really great work. So again, any other comments or questions on this portion of the program? Okay, I will turn it back over to you, Todd.
All right. Well, commissioners, this is, our meeting at the annual tourism conference is usually a little bit shorter meeting. We obviously didn't have a briefing, and this meeting is not 3 hours long, it's 2. So we have 2 updates that we want to bring to you today. And the first one is, in a way, it's kind of been a long time coming, and in another way, it still ain't finished yet, And it's all about what's going on out at PDX. And I am really pleased to have a very dear friend, great partner, Curtis Robinhold, who's the director of the Port of Portland, joining Petra Hackworth, who is our VP of Global Sales, to provide us with an update about PDX Next. Curtis, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us here today.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I have to say, before we get started, I lost my voice in Hawaii. I got back early this morning. That's what you get when you vacation with your children and yell at them all week.
Yeah,
I'm
since
also
he was on vacation,
very impressed.
we don't feel sorry for him.
Very impressed, commissioners, that at Port Commission meetings we have 6 or 8 people in attendance, and you have a couple hundred. So, Todd, I've got to get the tips from you.
Hold a conference with 550 people and then hold your meeting in conjunction with that. Works every time, buddy.
So good afternoon, commissioners. With the huge crowd behind us, I thought this was the best meeting to have Curtis here to share a little bit about what's happening at PDX Next. Curtis is the executive director of the Port of Portland. The port, governed by a 9-member commission appointed by the governor, consists of 4 marine terminals, 2 general aviation airports, and of course the Portland International Airport, so no small task. Curtis leads the port team of 800 people in the vision and operation of their marine terminals, airports, and business parks. He is responsible for the transformation of PDX with PDX Next, a 5-year, $2 billion construction project that will ensure that PDX is able to support 35 million passengers per year, including a series of other transformative projects that he's going to tell us about today. And before I turn it over to Curtis, I just want to thank you so much for your continued partnership, for sponsoring part of the Governor's Conference. We really are the envy of other gateways. People know about Portland, they know about PDX, they know about the carpet, they know how innovative our airport is, and our tourism industry colleagues across the country, what they are really envious of, not just the airport itself, but the relationship that we have with the Port of Portland and the Air Service Development Team, with Rick, David, and Sonia, who are in the back here. We just have an incredible relationship. They're so supportive, and we just have a great partnership. And I think that's due to your leadership and the passion we all have for the nonstop services coming to Portland. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Curtis. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Petra. And again, commissioners, apologies for the throat. I'm going to do the best I can. I've told my team I could drop at slide 6, so be prepared to jump in. I'm really glad to be here. It's nice to see all of you. As both Todd and Petra referenced, we're good friends. We work closely together. I was talking in back here with a few of my teammates about Delta and British Air coming and how those sorts of things happen. And they don't happen because of the Port of Portland, nor do they happen because of Travel Oregon. It's this ecosystem that I know you're all very familiar with and deeply engaged in, both professionally and personally. And so I want to thank you for that partnership and acknowledge Todd and his team, who are terrific and great friends of ours. So PDX Next is what I'd like to talk to you about today, but the reference earlier to European travel and to flights across the pond, I do want to just touch on one quick item, which is really great news. We're going to have the best season to Europe we've ever had in Portland. It's aligned with these numbers that Todd referenced. 4 nonstop direct flights into Europe this summer. This would be the test for me. British Airways, Delta, Condor, and Iceland Air. As I think most of you know, we're not yet back to Asia in the kind of meaningful way that we want to be. We think that probably happens over the course of 2024. We'll see. We're sort of on tenterhooks right now about both Korea and Japan as direct routes, but we do expect to get back to Asia. In the meantime, really amazing season for us looking ahead here to this summer into Europe, and happy to talk more about that if you'd like when we come to questions. But I didn't want to skip over air service development. So what's going on with PDX? Really an incredible story here. We've been at it now for nearly 7 years. We have 2 left. We're going to finish in 2025, and you see here on the timeline just sort of the hallmarks of each of these 4 years. Last year was really about installing the big beams, getting the roof built out on the airfield, and then moving it into place with, though, by the way, a visit of the President of the United States to check it out. A lot of really exciting work and I'd say acknowledgement around this 9-acre wood roof, which I'll talk about a little bit more. This year, 2023, is really about what the inside is going to look like. We're pouring the concrete floor. Right now, we're working on installing the glass along these long strips on both the west and the north and south sides of the building. And you'll experience here over the course of the summer and fall working through preparing the ticket counters to move and be removed, and I'll share a little bit more of that. So 2024, next May, will be the opening of the big central space, which I'll share with you here in a minute. The idea behind it is really inspired by a walk in an Oregon forest. I'm a Southwest Oregon kid, Eugene Springfield, and my wife and I raise our kids here in Portland. We just love the experience of what Oregon is like, and it was part of our charge to our architects at ZGF is how do you do that for real so that you walk into an airport and you don't feel like you could be in Roanoke or Tampa. You're in Oregon. What's that feel like to be the doorstep? Materials, people, who did the work? What feelings do you have when you're in there? What's the light like? So we'll get to some of those great things. We're going to keep a lot of the stuff that people love. Pre-security shopping and the concourse connector, which I'll touch on and hear about more than anything except the carpet, which I'll also touch on. And we're going to expand the facility from what is today about 20 million passengers a year to, as Petra mentioned earlier, about 35 million passengers a year. So honestly, for the foreseeable growth in our lifetimes in the airport. The step after that, I think we're all asking ourselves, what's an airport look like? We just don't know beyond 20 or 25 years. And then in 2025, the project will be completed. What we're doing is shifting all of the traffic into the main core, and then we'll close down we call them the nodes, but where you come out of security and get your cup of coffee, those are the nodes. It will take us another year to finish all that, but then by the end of 2025, we'll be ready to go, and we'll have a resilient, expansive, gorgeous new airport terminal. So let me see here. The question, what's up at PDX? Really I think, do I go to a video here? Who's going to help me with this? Oh, no, I'm not going to do it? You can take me to the video. We'll do a quick video. Now what's up at PDX? Nope. Is that me? There we go. I think we're okay. We're aligned. Really the goal for us is keeping the heart and soul, keeping these things that Oregonians feel is special about our place, and also being able to share those with visitors. So what you see here is the new layout. It's hard for me to show you without doing a full Vanna White here, but where you see that first central area is the new ticketing, where the lines are heading up the screen. And where those end in a sort of brown strip that has some trees in it, that's the end of the current terminal core. The rest of that is new, so we're roughly doubling the size of the facility, and by the way, cutting energy demand in half for the facility. So a really remarkable shift, really excited about it. So one of the keys that we noticed in development of the concourses over the last 20 years is that Oregonians and Portlanders in particular really align with the size of city blocks. They expect a break at the end of the length of a block. They expect to be able to do each of the things that they want to do in that city block. And so one of those, we do that, you might have noticed, in the concourses. We also want to do it in the terminal core. So what we're going to experience is a series of different rooms. They're big rooms, and you'll see a few renderings here, but the idea is you're moving from one smaller or contained location to another, and it will feel slightly different. So I'm going to hopefully be able to take you through a few of those. The first one, these are those vertical lines, and essentially what you see on the right is the glass wall you walk through today from parking into the terminal. But what you'll see that's new is this new latticed wood ceiling, these vast beams, Y-beams holding up that wood roof, and linear counters for the airlines to do check-in that will allow you to flow more quickly through. One of the questions I get in addition to which carpet is where carpet, and you'll see here, notionally where you're moving, you will not be on carpet. Where you're standing or sitting, you'll be on carpet. It'll be more restful and comfortable, honestly. The terrazzo that you see is a seamless terrazzo, which we didn't have 30 years ago when we were putting terrazzo into PDX. So bags won't make clicking sounds when they go over it. But what you will get is this vast sort of a sky or forest canopy feel. And you'll enter, pass through ticketing. If you still do ticketing, likely you'll do in the future your own bag drop there. Ticketing and bag drop, and then you'll flow through to the left, which is to the west. When you get to that central spot, I described it as brown earlier. I'm sure the team was back there cringing. It's also meant to be a very bright space, whether you call it a garden or a passageway. It will be green. The skylight you see there is actually wood. Vice Chair from the Coquel, you may know already, we are able to say where wood in the roof was sourced, and I'll get a little bit to that later, but a really open, giant skylight kind of feel as you walk through, not yet passing through security. When you are past that garden area, there'll be an open, what has replaced the Oregon Market. There'll be a restaurant here that hopefully our commission will approve next week, a local bar that's super cool. I'll just say, and I can't tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be great. It's not Loyal Legion. But what you see above is a mezzanine restaurant, and then this sort of two stairs coming down where there'll be music, still this latticed roof, and an open view of the airfield for everyone, passengers and non-passengers alike. And hidden behind that open area and the restaurant, where you see the people walking back there, is, I know for a lot of travelers, a deep frustration, is that currently we've taken that concourse connector that connects A, B, C with D, E out, and that will return. So on the mezzanine, you'll have diners relaxing, and you'll have people, again, connecting from local and regional flights to the more international and long-range flights. Really excited about this new bar space there, which will also enable something that I think mostly older Oregonians, my own parents talked to me about this, is the sort of, we'd go out to the airport for drinks, or we'd go out there to shop, and I sort of do this, oh, wow, all right, let's get back to that. That's going to be great. What you'll get when you get through security is more local shops. I mentioned my commission is meeting in a week. They're voting on 22 new concessions inside the airport, both pre and post security. All 22 local brands, which, as I think everybody knows, is unique and special, and really without compare. I think everyone's going to be really proud of who's in the airport and who they reflect. It's also 10 minority and women-owned businesses out of the 22, so really excited about the impact we can have in our own community. Those will begin opening in May of '24 with that terminal core, and then another round will come by the end of the following year in '25. 18 of those 22 brands are locally owned brands. It's really exciting, and I think people will look at it and say, that's what we know about, and that's what we feel good about. And yes, the carpet. The carpet will return. I have to say, as the executive director of the port, I really don't understand the carpet thing, but it's okay. I have the swag. My kids love it. They got the Blazer jersey with it. We are going to have it in 10 locations where people can tweet their feet. It is also, I think it's noteworthy. We did a little, back in maybe year 2 of this 7-year journey, we asked folks in Oregon and from around Oregon, what do you feel about the airport and what do you feel about PDX specifically? And at the end of the poll, and I'm a former political hack, so I love reading every line of the poll. At the end of the poll, we had this open-ended question. What comes to mind when I say Portland International Airport? And unprompted, the #1 response was home. And I think that's the only line I can draw to why the carpet is important to people. They see it and they say, yeah, that's my thing, right? That's kooky and kind of ugly. And, like my girlfriend has a tattoo with it or whatever. It's something that really matters to people and reflects their feelings that this is my place. And so we really look forward to having that. The picture you see here is one of the meter greeter areas. So when you come out of security, folks can wait here for their family, friends, loved ones, church family, can come out in this location and notionally, again, take pictures on the old carpet, the classic carpet, as we like to call it. But the airport, it's important to note, I think when we constructed 65 years ago, PDX, it was really for one type of passenger. And those days have changed. I do appreciate, Todd, you mentioning the staff really focusing on how are we going to get better, about thinking about who experiences this, who works here, who owns these businesses. One of the things we've spent a lot of time thinking about in this go-around is who is in the airport and who struggles with getting through the airport. I mentioned in my voice as an indication, I was just in Hawaii with my parents from Eugene, who are 84, and they have a whole different set of travel issues. I know across the travel industry, this is a really big question. We're piloting Good Maps inside the airport, which is a digital approach to both hearing and sight impaired travelers. We're also thinking more about people who are neurodiverse, how they experience travel, how they find their gait, how they can calm in an otherwise hectic space. So we're really excited about it. There's a lot going on there. Would be happy to talk more about, but we're just really learning a lot from our community. And I'd say to the point in your strategic plan, we're learning mostly by going out and asking, what's important to you? How do you do that? And what struggles do you have, when you come and experience our facility? It's been honestly very eye-opening. I did mention the forest to frame and the work we've put into figuring out the roof. We partnered with ZGF to do this work again, beginning 7 or so years ago. 9 acres of wood is a massive amount, but we also asked ourselves and asked ZGF, how can you make it better? How can you improve the roof to be something that we can be proud of? So what they have helped us understand, and our own team has really dug into, is really localizing the sourcing. 40 landowners, mills, and fabricators across the region, all within 600 miles of the facility. Nearly 100% of the 2.6 million board feet it comes from sustainably harvested wood, glulam beams, and the ceiling timbers you see in this photo. And I mentioned the Coquel, but it's also a group of family-owned farms. It's the Skokomish and Yakima Nation, just really close to our community and who we are. And our goal is to be able to stand under a roof piece like this and look up and say, that came from a farm in Clackamas County. That came from Springfield. To be able to say, this is our place. And so one of the things, and Todd and I have been talking about this on the side, is how do you help people experience Oregon when they walk in, and how many ways can we do that? We're really thinking about interpretation and how to help people see these stories when they're in the building. And then finally, I think a video.
Flight PDX-NW, now arriving at gate 2024.
We know you love the carpet, but soon you'll have a reason to look up. How do you take one of the most loved airports in the country and make it even better, even more Pacific Northwest?
Design it so it feels like the forest.
You start with lumber from sustainably managed forests in Oregon and Washington.
You source from tribal lands across the region, including community forests and small landowners.
Making sure to be able to trace the lumber back to its origins from forest to frame.
We come up with a way to make these big, beautiful beams.
You hire thousands of skilled tradespeople to build a 9-acre roof right on the airfield. Together we build something we hope you'll be proud of, a true testament to the spirit and people of the Pacific Northwest. We can't wait for you to see.
Petra and I just did the, God, it's awesome. I would just say, and Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners, be happy to take any questions. I hope reflected in this video and also my scratchy words today is just a hope that you will be as proud of this building as we are, and the stories it tells and the people who are part of it. So thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate being here.
Well, I want to be the first to say that thanks to Dave and Rick, I own a square of the old carpet, and I feel like it's like an antique car in my house. But it's been exciting over the years to see just the evolution of PDX itself, and everything you shared is exciting, and the work you do to make it inclusive to small businesses and what have you, it shows. In the future, we have this Oregon Tourism Leadership Academy, and it would be exciting one day that we have an opportunity to come out there as well. So I'll have to talk to Jason and the rest of the team about it. Thanks.
That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Curtis, I'm just going to jump in here real quick while there's a little bit of a pause, but David alluded to how it's been interesting to see the evolution over the years of PDX, and as true as that is, certain things are sacrosanct and have never changed at PDX. And chief amongst them, from my perspective, has been you've always seen yourselves as part of the tourism industry. You never, what I would actually say, diminished yourself and just said, we're a transportation provider. You saw yourself and still see yourself today as part of the Oregon experience. You know, that's washed over folks that have led TSA there in the past, where they talked about how their exit from Oregon is that last impression. They've got a chance to make it a good one, you know? And it's because of the environment and the culture that you've created there at PDX. You mentioned 22 new concessionaires that are going to be coming online. You and I both know it didn't have to be 22 individual concessionaires. You could have done a master concessionaire contract with some firm that brings in like a dozen things to show up in your airport and fill the concourse and provide food and beverage. You didn't do that. And this is far more labor intensive. You're going to have 22 different concessionaire agreements, not one or two, that see several. And that's not lost on me, and it's not lost on us as members of the commission, and certainly the folks in this room, to see your investment in being such a partner, such a friend, such a great colleague in the work that we do together. So to me, it transcends the support of the Governor's Conference and those kinds of things. It's what you're doing every day to be part of the travel and tourism industry, making sure that folks have a great welcome, as well as, you know, that great last impression as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
I don't know if I can follow up as eloquently as Todd did, but what I will say is what vision I was actually getting weepy on that last video, feeling so inspired, right? Just by, wow, that's my airport. And so I just truly thank you for the vision to bring it to life, to present it to us today. I did not know that a portion of the wood came from the Coquille Indian tribal forest. I did want to ask, is all the wood cedar on that on the ceiling?
It's not.
It's not.
It's Doug fir.
Say that again?
It's Doug fir.
It's Doug fir. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's pretty exciting. Again, kind of a nerdy former forestry student as well, and from Eugene. I spent some time down at the Zippo mill in Eugene, where they're trying to put these big glulam beams together. The biggest, it's again nerdy, the biggest beams that are continuous. When you get really big beams, oftentimes they'll be seamed together after they're made. And so we tasked Zippo with, could you make them 90 feet long in one piece? And they sort of did this. Yeah, we'd have to hammer this out and make this work. And I just thought it was this classic sort of Lane, Douglas County ingenuity. It's like, we can make that work. You know, it was great, really super impressive and lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd just like to just follow up as well as just say thank you. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your intentionality with this. And I'm a wife of an architect designer, and so a 9-acre roof like that is pretty remarkable. So thank you for, as Todd said, maintaining the uniqueness and the rarity of our place of PDX. And I can't wait to see all the beautiful local products that you'll have inside those concessionaires. So keep up the great work, and thank you. Really.
I just want to say your passion comes through for the state of Oregon and for the airport, and I appreciate it. And I think I probably am the most excited for this airport because I have not been in the Portland airport since pre-COVID. We do not have service from Redmond direct in because of outbound flights, and now with the return of that, I will be back looking at that carpet again. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to that day. Everything goes. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Curtis, thank you again very much. Petra, thank you. Cecilia, if you'd like to start working your way up, commissioners, this is the yin and yang of the work of Travel Oregon and the Oregon travel and tourism industry. You just saw probably one of the most prominent front of the house kinds of services with what's happening at PDX and the potential to have 35 million passengers a year eventually traveling through that, to now talking about one of the nerdiest things at Travel Oregon, and that would be databases. And why we care about databases. And there's nobody better to tell you about why we care and why everyone should care about what goes into the Oregon Travel Information System than our own database information specialist, Cecilia. So Cecilia, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Todd. That really amped me up. Speaking of vision and evolution, I feel like we're fitting into a theme here. Vice Chair DeNovo, commissioners, good afternoon to my industry partner friends. Hello, glad you're here today. So we are going to talk about the Oregon Tourism Information System today. What is that, you ask? Well, thankfully, we gave it a shorter name. We call it OTIS for short. OTIS is our collaborative platform that we use for maintaining and sharing Oregon's tourism assets. Oh, first time with the mic, thank you. OTIS unifies our efforts within our industry, and it helps us to streamline listing management and content. So put simply, OTIS is a database. It's a key component to our editorial strategy of being the trusted resource for Oregon trip inspiration and information. So we know you can be inspired by a YouTube video, a TikTok, an Instagram story. That will inspire you to go to the place, but we also have a responsibility to give information to our visitors with all of the things they can see and do along the way to complete their wonderful journey in Oregon. So this is everything from places to go, places to eat, airports, EV stations, and also travel alerts when it's necessary. So we're going to do 3 things in a very short period of time. We're going to talk about where we've been with this platform, where we're currently at, and where we want to go. But before I can talk more about Otis, we have to go back to the days of the orb. Todd Davidson was there. I wasn't quite on the team yet. So Travel Oregon created the orb at a time when listings couldn't be easily imported into a website from a third party. I'm sure if Google Places API existed in 2009, we would have looked at that. But we saw a need for something and created it. So the project goal was to collect and store data on tourism assets throughout Oregon that could inspire and inform. The only other database of this kind at the time was the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, and that is Australia's national platform for storing digital tourism data. The orb launched in February of 2009, and it was, when it launched, it was for events and deals, and more types were later added. Users, so user accounts, are open to representatives of local and regional destination management organizations, or DMOs, and this data in the orb not only powered listings on Travel Oregon's website, excuse me, I was not just in Hawaii. One second. We also had a couple fantastic early integrators, and I want to shout them out: Oregon's Adventure Coast and the Washington County Visitors Association. Still partners with Otis. All right, flash forward 8-ish years, we could round up to 10. So Otis launched in September of 2017 alongside the rebranding and relaunch of TravelOregon.com. Otis provides a way for us to consolidate and streamline our listing management while we can broadly distribute the content across multiple sites on the internet. Notable upgrades, I shortened my list or we'd be here for quite some time. Otis featured a way more flexible platform structure than the orb. It had a very much improved user interface. We increased the number of listing types again. And upgrades were made to existing features like bulk upload, and tools to make content management easier were introduced, like the ability to copy listings. And we continue to make updates to Otis with releases occurring monthly. Okay, I love this slide. So our partners power Otis, as you can see here. Any local or regional DMO can have access to Otis, and we also work with a number of statewide groups as well. So these updates to listings happen in Otis collaboratively, and the data can be accessed, shared, and exported. So this can happen both manually and programmatically. So you can download a report from Otis. You could upload a report to Otis. And when we're talking about plugging in programmatically, that's usually by API, which is Application Programming Interface, essentially how 2 or more platforms talk to each other. We get our updates from Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Oregon State Marine Board, and Oregon State Parks on an annual basis. And then we also have API connections to our partners local and the Oregon Wine Board. Okay, so obviously our partners are powering this database. And the opposite is true. Otis also powers our partners. So to date, we have 13 integrated partners. That includes 4 regional DMOs that have elected to use Otis. And we have 2 integrations currently in the works. I didn't get permission to share who they are yet, so more to come on that. And those integrations will be live by the end of this fiscal year. And this really supports another of our publishing goals, which is create something once, publish it everywhere. I mean, we're getting there. 13. I'd love to get to 20 partners by the end of next fiscal year. So I think we can do that. So we know what partners are using the Otis data, but here are examples of how that data translates to different websites. These are some of our partners in the Willamette Valley. That listing information is identical, but our partners are able to put their own voice to it through their branding, their chosen formatting, and then also the placement within listings on their websites. We have learned a lot, and we continue to learn more and relearn. Because Otis really invites all of the cooks into the kitchen, it's added efficiency to our community efforts of building and managing these point of interest listings. And some of these listings can really become what we like to call layer cakes. Sorry to stay with the food theme. We might have listings with pieces of content that are coming from more than one source. We also know that not every DMO has the resources and time to manage this content all the time, and Otis helps us to meet our partners where they are at. And finally, we are of course grateful to our partners across the state whose use of the platform and feedback helps immensely. I cannot stress that enough. We want all the feedback for when we're considering changes and enhancements to the platform. And I forgot to mention a fun fact a couple slides back. We currently have over 200 active user accounts in Otis, so we do have a lot of people using it. But where are we going with Otis? So Otis has always played an important role in our strategic planning. It fits very nicely under the pillar of supporting and empowering our partners. And it currently is supporting our 10-year strategic vision under the objective of delivering remarkable experiences. So listings play an important role in visitors' trip planning, and we expect that to continue into the future. So we plan to focus on acquisition by increasing platform usage, both with individual users, content partnerships, and website integrations. Also focusing on partnerships so that we can source new data and augment existing data through innovative and trustworthy partnerships. And lastly, we're always focused on functionality. Any product enhancements must simplify the user experience as well as simplifying website and content integrations. And what are we counting on? If there's one thing we can count on, it is absolutely change. We anticipate technology and consumer behavior will change with time. This means that we must be vigilant, monitor these trends, and be ready to adapt so that we can ensure the highest and best use of resources for Travel Oregon and our partners. Thank you. What questions do you have?
All right, Cecilia, thank you. Great job. Commissioners, I hope that part of what really came through strongly for you are kind of the two sides of why we care about Otis and the orb. And before that, I think we called it the mother of all databases because we didn't know what to call it. So that's what we called it.
The mother of all databases.
And one is the trusted source. And Cecilia brought that home. Consumers are going to go to websites that they feel that they can trust. And then they can trust the links that move out from that. So the more robust the content is on traveloregon.com and the more the data is accurate in real time, the more they're going to come to trust the site, the more they're going to come to depend on it, the more we know that that site will be a primary launch point for their inspiration and their planning their trip to Oregon. And it happens because of the 200 folks that Cecilia mentioned that are providing us with that content. The other side is the industry side. And actually, the mother of all databases, then to become the Orb, started from a conversation I was having with some folks when I was presenting, I believe, at a Travel Southern Oregon symposium. And the question came up about, by the way, I need to take you back to the early days of the internet. 1997, TravelOregon.com was brand new, and everybody was trying to populate their website with their lodging listings and event listings and those kinds of things. And the reality is, if you're a local DMO in the room, we heard you loud and clear, but it's like you needed to get it on your website, you needed to get it on your region's website, you needed to get it on the state website, then you needed to get it on Yahoo Travel or Google Travel or what, and you were just constantly just updating data all day long, and trying to make sure that it was showing up accurately everywhere. And so the question that was taken back to the Travel Oregon team was, what if? What if we created this repository, this mother of all databases now known as Otis, where data could be shared and it could be both, you could populate it so you knew your data was accurate on the state's website, but you could also pull data so you wouldn't have to worry about maintaining everything, but you could pull winery listings for wineries in your region because the Oregon Wine Board is making sure that the winery listings are up to date. And so as a local DMO, you can just pull that in, as you're seeing folks are doing. So Cecilia, it's amazing work. You did a beautiful job covering it. And I just wanted to make sure that those two pieces, how the work that Cecilia is doing has both that consumer-facing component as well as an industry-facing component. In fact, probably the part you love most about the role is getting out, meeting with folks when you do your trainings around the state on how to implement Otis in your website and how to put the API in so you can push data to us. So she's doing that as well. So beautiful job today, Cecilia. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Cecilia?
As chair of the Coos Bay North Bend Charleston Visitors Association, we have really for years appreciated, I remember when it was the Orb and then it moved to Otis, and it's been, for a small DMO, it's been really effective for us in being able to get information out at the state level as well. So thank you very much for all of your efforts.
Any other questions or comments at this time? All right. Cecilia, thank you very much for your presentation. Vice Chair DeNovo, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Well, we have reached the end of our meeting today. Is there any additional business or announcements from the commissioners? Okay. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, no, it's not me.
Oh, Greg, sorry. Go ahead.
See how she says it negatively to you? Go ahead, Scott. Oh, Greg, you go ahead.
It wasn't wasted on me.
Yeah. I want to share my enjoyment of Portland, and I always say I live in a beautiful part of the state, and I certainly do. But my wife and I do like to eat dinner after 9 o'clock occasionally. We like to drink wine and walk back to our hotel a fair distance. And throughout this entire duration of Portland's comeback, we have participated in the same routine we have done for dozens of years. And it's still a magical place for us. It hasn't changed for us. But some of that is perseverance and a strong woman walking by your side. But I'd like to thank Portland for addressing what their pitfalls are and working on making it a better town and a safer town for the visitors coming to the place. And then I'd also like to acknowledge Vice Chair DeNovo's first time running a meeting, and you did a great job, and thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with you with all the work that Portland's doing, and Greg and David and I went out to dinner last night, and it was just fun being out in Portland, and I think I was telling David and Greg last night, my uncles owned one of the first gay bars in downtown Portland on 3rd Street, and it's not there anymore, but I have such fond, wonderful memories of Portland, and quite honestly, 30 years later, they haven't changed. This place is spectacular. I'm so excited to see it come back, and I'm excited for all of the people that have played a role in that. So, Maria, did you have any comments?
I love Portland. Rock on. Keep going, never stop.
Okay. David?
No, I just want to share with everyone the Oregon Tourism Leadership Academy. I believe they will be meeting on the 5th, I believe, and it's exciting to have them back here in the Portland area. And I hope each and every one of you that's attending, I get a chance to meet you while you're here. So, thanks.
Thank you, David. Well, with that said, as Todd mentioned during the strategic plan update, our next meeting will be a virtual meeting on May 18th to hear the public comment on the draft 23-25 strategic plan and budget. And our next in-person meeting will be in Lakeview on June 12th and 13th. I would like to thank the staff and our local partners for a wonderful meeting, and I'm happy to say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I'd like to ask the commissioners and Todd to introduce